Hey, what you saying? I'm glad you joined me for this episode.
Yeah, that was good.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy Prem. Okay, so the last episode, we covered two iteration constructs, the while loop and the do while loop. And now I have one final construct that I want to go over. And that last one is for loops. So with the while and the do while loops, we looped until a certain condition was true, which is dope, but we have limited amount of control. We don't know exactly how many times we'll iterate until that condition is met. So C++ has provided a construct where you can tell the computer exactly how many times that you want to loop. And that, my boys, is a for loop. This kind of loop is more suited for counting and moving through a sequence of things, like an array for example. And here's what the loop looks like in code. It looks mad complex here, but it isn't, trust. So the initialization part, this is a statement that sets up the initial condition for the loop. For example, setting the loop counter to 0. The test part, this is exactly like the expression that was in the while and the do while loops. The test is tested each time before the loop body executes. If it's true, it executes the statement, but if it's false, the loop ends and it moves on to the statement after the loop, just like the whiles. And finally, the action part. This is what's executed after the loop body has executed and before the test has been tested. This often involves incrementing that counter variable, and then the cycle just repeats itself until the test is false, and then the loop ends. So say I want to have a for loop that makes me head spin 10 times. I'd set the loop counter to 0, then the test will test to see if the loop counter is less than 10, and finally after each iteration the action will increment the loop counter, and boom, it will execute the spin method 10 times and then continue on with the rest of the program. So the reason why I started at 0 instead of 1, because the index of containers like arrays for example start at 0, so it's always good practice to start your loop counter at 0. Simples. Okay, chillin'. So I'm gonna show you how to implement these constructs using this little test array. If you're unsure on while or do while, make sure you watch the previous episodes. That's where that's all explained. Anyways, this array contains 20 integers, all default initialized. So let's start with the for loop. Say we want to assign all the elements in this array. Because we know the exact amount of elements in this array, we can loop that exact amount of times. So we initialize the loop counter to 0. Then we set up the test expression while x is less than 20. This will ensure that it will loop 20 times, as 0 to 19 is 20 numbers. The action part will simply increment the loop counter. Bless. So in the loop body, we can place what we want to do. Here we're just initializing each element with the same number as the loop counter. Nice. So while loops. Now, this loop doesn't have explicit control over the number of iterations. So for example, say we want to loop until the first element has the number 10 in it. And let's pretend we don't know the number that's in that element at this given moment. Just know that it's less than 10 right now. In the while, you can tell it to increment the data in a variable until it contains the value 10. It doesn't matter how long it takes, just do it. Pretty chill, right? And finally, do while loops. Does the exact same thing really, but this time the test condition is at the end. Cool. So when I run this, all the elements have been iterated through and assigned 20 iterations here. That was the for loops doing. Then we wanted to increment the first element until it contained 10 in it. This was the while loops doing. And finally, we wanted to decrement that same element down to 0. And this is what we use the do while for, son. Nice work. Okay, bless. I whizzed through the coding elements in this one because in the previous episode I went into a lot of detail of how the coding worked, so I simply didn't want to repeat myself. But if you're still a little unsure, don't stress. We're going to do some exercises together in the next episode to practice use. You can click right here for your drills. Have fun, keep pushing, see you man next episode. Peace.